Hi lovelies, welcome back to my channel and thanks so much for watching today's video. If you're new here, welcome to the Fam Gang. My name is Olivia. I post beauty, life and style videos here over every week on YouTube. And if you're an oldie but a goodie, welcome back. Okay, so this week I thought I would do something that I haven't done on my channel for quite a while, which is more of a beginner style video. And it's something that I have seen on YouTube for years and years, but I do still get a lot of questions on how exactly do I do things and what my specific technique is. But I thought the best way to kind of show what I do versus what I don't do would be to do a do's and don'ts video. So that's the essence of today's video. I am going to be applying half of my face, kind of the way that I regularly do my makeup, which works for me. And then the other side, more of a don'ts and what I would call mistakes in terms of makeup. Disclaimer, of course, this is just how I like to do my makeup. Some of these don'ts are definitely things that I have done myself, mistakes that I have done in like kind of my makeup past. So it's not a judgment video, it's not calling anybody out. It's just to kind of highlight maybe where sometimes you see your makeup and you're like, oh, how come it's not come out like so-and-so? Or how come it's not come out like that? Some of these kind of don't mistakes might help you see where to tweak and make your makeup look a little bit better and hopefully more flawless. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then just keep watching and let's get into the video. Okay, I'm starting off with a completely bare face. Well, almost completely bare. I have got on a pair of falsies, but otherwise nothing else on my skin. So I usually start off my makeup by doing my eyebrows, so we're going to start exactly there. I'll do, this side will be my good side and this side will be my bad side. I think I'll start off with the bad side first so that you can see the mistake, and then do the good side so that you can see how I would alternatively do it, which I think is better. So number one mistake that people make with eyebrows is going way too dark with the brow product. I have been culprit of this mistake before. I used to use black eyeliner and honestly I don't know what I was thinking. Don't do it. So if you've got fair hair like mine, you're going to be tempted to start to do your brow right at the root here and draw a line all across. So let me just show you what I mean. So oh god, draw a dark line to get the shape. At the bottom there, you see the way it's starting all the way in, and then doing one on top. That also looks the same. You can see I've stopped kind of like a little bit before the end because that's force of habit. I don't always go to the edge, but some people will do that, right? And draw a full traced outline of the brow. And then when it comes to filling it in, basically just colouring it in all the way. Yeah, even if you try and do something a little bit softer here towards the front, that's essentially what you get if you use black. Heavy, dark, too intense, just don't do it. So what's the alternative? The best thing to do is to grab a dark brown pencil, unless your complexion is really, really rich and really, really dark when black won't show up, just avoid the black, okay? So what I would suggest is a dark brown pencil, and the colour that I like is number 3 from Davis, that cheap pencil that we all buy at the chemist, that one, yeah? And what I would actually do, let me just brush up these hairs again. What I actually do is to start to feather the brows in from the root, and make sure your pencil is sharp because this is like key to being able to mimic hairs on your face. So I would draw a line of hairs going vertically up, just to try and mimic and make it a little bit feathery. It's not going to be perfect, but it's fine. And then after about 1 centimeter, I start to kind of make it angular, and I don't draw all the way up. I start to kind of do this towards the middle, and then once I've kind of done that much, then I go in and draw a line, but I don't start the line right here at the root. So I start it after about 1 centimeter in, is when I would start to draw that line. And then trace an outline for the bottom. And similarly, don't start all the way at the root. trace an outline for the top. Something like that, okay? And then now I go to fill it in. And so I'll continue with those kind of diagonal strokes through the middle, but not worrying too much now about trying to kind of exactly mimic hair, because the hair's slightly thicker for me there in the middle. And then fill out the tail. Then something that you should always do after you've done that, grab your spoolie brush again and just brush through the hairs in the same fashion, vertically here and then diagonally across your whole brow. So can we see the difference already? This harsh, heavy, blocky, this more natural, more feathery, just easier to look at. Okay, then we go into carving out the brows. And the mistake that we've all done is to use a concealer that's way too light. And I'm using a concealer that I would never use on my brows in terms of shade, because to me it's just too much. Okay, so that's the underside carved out, and you can see I've just looked in the little reflection. You can see how dramatic that looks. Mistake number 2 with carving out brows, carving out the top. Now, we've all done this, I'm sure. But for me, it's just a no-go. It makes the eyebrow look too fake. And that's going across the top and also using that exact same concealer shade across the top to carve out the brow. I'm blending this out so it doesn't look as bad. And we can see really and truly what we're working with. Okay, now for the better side, I'm going in with a concealer that is actually very close to my skin tone. I love this concealer. It's the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop in the shade Mocha. If you use me for a colour match, then this is an incredible shade for us because it's just on point in terms of colour. Okay, so I can use this on days particularly where I want to kind of do like a no makeup look and I just want to do my eyebrows and then run out of the door. This is the shade that I would use. Alright, so next step for me now is usually foundation. There are 2 things about foundation. 1, using the wrong foundation, actually 3. 1, using the completely wrong shade for you. 2, using the wrong undertone for you. And 3, applying too much foundation. So I went through rummaging through my foundation drawer, but I recently did a big clear out of all my foundations, so I've really struggled to find one that kind of works for this side in terms of the mistakes. So it's not perfect in terms of an extreme mistake, but go with it and we'll see. So the foundation I'm using on this side is MAC Studio Fix, and this is in the shade NW50. I typically wear the shade NW48, which is a little bit golden. NW50 has a little bit of a rosy undertone to it, and I have quite neutral golden tones. So if I go rosy, I mean, I can make it work because it's not too far from my shade, but it's not ideal for me. So I'm just going to show you on this side what that looks like. And as I say, don't expect it to look too horrific. There we go, on the brush, and just going to dab this on the face. And I've put on about what would be the equivalent of 2 pumps, which means I've got far too much foundation on for my face. I would use this typically all over my face. That would be enough to use on my face. The challenge with too much foundation, number 1, is that it becomes harder to blend, particularly if you don't have an exact shade match, right? So the further away it is from your ideal shade, the harder it's going to be to blend it out if you've got just far too much product on. Number 2, your skin is just going to look wrong. It's going to look cakey. It's not going to look as natural and of like a nice of a finish. And your face will just feel heavy. I don't know about you, but I hate when my face feels really kind of heavy and like I've got too much product on. That really, really annoys me. Okay, so here we go. I've got that applied on that side. And I hope you can see what I mean by the undertone is a bit off. I mean, it's still drying down, so it is a little bit light, but in that lightness, can you see that it's kind of like a little bit rosy toned? It's not as golden as it needs to be, so it doesn't look as good on my face. Then I'm just gonna take some of the excess off this brush. Then on this side, I'm gonna use my Current Fave foundation. You guys know it's the NARS Radiant Longwear in the shade New Caledonia. This has enough golden tones in it to kind of speak to my undertones and bring out the best in my skin. So I've just put on one single pump, and the pumps on the NARS foundation are light. Like, you don't get that much product, so it's like way less than I've put on this side. Okay. You want to blend this in also here under your chin. And if you like, you can take it down your neck. I don't like to do that. I've just accepted that my neck is darker than the rest of my face, so I work with it. Okay, so can you see? This looks more natural, more speaking to my skin tone. This side looks almost like a little bit ashy, and that's because it's the wrong undertone. The shade is right in terms of the depth, but not the right undertone, so it looks funky. What I like to do after I've put on foundation on this good side is to also just go in and blend with a sponge. So sometimes I'll apply with a sponge, but if I do a brush, then I like to go in and work with a sponge, make sure it's wet and damp. Just because that helps to blend out the foundation better, you get more of a seamless finish, it just looks tons better, and you help to push the product into your skin so that it works. After doing my base, I would go in with concealer and do my under eye highlight. This is where I think a lot of makeup for me personally goes wrong in terms of base, because people just go in with a concealer that's way too light for their skin tone. I can understand a few years ago we didn't have so many options in terms of shade ranges, and especially like affordable makeup, there wasn't that much in terms of choice for you to pick from to get a shade that you would use for a highlight. But today we have so much to go by, and please, we're not all fawn for under eye highlight. Please, we're not all Amand from NARS for under eye highlight. Like, we're just not. If you're deeper, work with your skin tone, it will look a ton more complimentary. So to make this as comparable as possible, I'm going to use the same concealer on each side, and that's the NARS, the Colourpop No Filter concealer. So on this side, I'm going to use that same shade that I used up here, which is Dark 40. And I'm going to apply it on my face. Now you can see just how light that is. It is super bright, and I'm going to put on an absolute ton of it. Yeah. A lot of it. I'm going to put it there under my eye. I'm going to put it here on my chin. I don't know what we're going to do about my nose. I'm going to put it here on my forehead. Okay. All right. I'm actually nervous about how this is going to turn out, but let's try. I'm going to go in with a sponge and blend this out. Now, one of the mistakes that people make is to go in with way too much product on their face with the foundation, as I said earlier, but also with the concealer. The more you have on your face, the less you can achieve a good blend, because you just have so much more product that you're working with, and it's just a ton harder to blend that out and have it look good if you just have too much of it. Like right now, look, I look like a clown. This ain't cute. Like, where? How? Tell me. Alright, so on this side, I'm going to use the shade Dark 48, which is much more friendly to my skin tone, and I'm just going to use a little amount, like that. That's it. and then a tiny bit here on the forehead and a little bit here on the chin. That's literally all I'm going to put on my face, and then I'm going to blend this out now. Alright, so we're still quite highlighted on this side, but you can see it's kind of limited to just here around the eye. Let me just blend that around here. A little bit on the chin. It's not coming all the way around entirely around my mouth, and a little bit on the forehead. Okay, so the concealer actually dries down quite matte and it's setting. I can feel it on this side, it's setting. But whether my concealer does that or not, I feel like I always have to go in with a setting powder just to make sure that it's not going to move. So we're going to go in on this side, and again, just like we did with the super light concealer, we're going to go in with a super bright setting powder. Now, mistake number one is to go in with entirely too much powder. Okay, you've dipped your entire sponge in there, you've gone all the way in, and you are setting. And because you had too much concealer on and you want to set the concealer, it means that you're entirely just basically setting your entire face. So now you're going to end up with super bright look all over your face. And then something that I think a lot of people still do right now is to bake. And that is to really then go in and lock in that product with a serious bake. Now, for like a big event where you've got to have your makeup kind of set for the entire day, I don't mind a bake. But there are two risks with this. Number one, that you end up looking cakey because you have too much powder product on your skin. Number two is that you end up, if it's the wrong shade, just looking way too bright. All right, so I'm going to leave that side to bake. It's already looking a little bit scary. And I'm going to go in and set my concealer on this side. So I usually would use my medium deep powder by Laura Mercier, but just so that we can see, so it's not like super dramatic and like a false comparison, I am going to use a lighter powder. So I'm going to use the same Laura Mercier honey powder that I used in my last video, so that you can see what a light powder would look like on my skin. But not one that's like as crazy and light as this, okay? So I'm just going to go in with this powder under my eye. And literally that's enough powder. Did you even see it? Like the tiniest, teeniest amount to set is all that you need. We need to dust off this excess because now I'm looking absolutely crazy. So let me just do that with this big brush. Okay, that's the best we can do. Okay, now of course, because you've highlighted, you need to go in and do your contouring if you like to contour or bronzer. I'm going to use a really dark concealer to contour my cheeks with. It's the Makeup Revolution shade C18 in the Conceal and Define. So number one, going to go in all the way there and practically just draw a line, and then bring this up my forehead like that, and my jawline. Going to also contour the nose with a line, oops, like that. Hands up if you still contour like this today. And let me just start by blending out the chin area, like that. Yeah, and bring that under my neck. And then for here, try and blend out this contour. And then something that was also all over like Instagram and stuff is then to go back in and put some concealer just under where you've done that contour. So draw another line and do that. And use that same super bright shade to do so. And then try and blend that in. Now, there's nothing wrong with sculpting, and there's nothing wrong with kind of trying to create that drama on your face. But I feel as though when you do it this way, it ends up just looking a little bit too much. The blend is too hard to achieve because it's just too much. And then can you see here, because I put on so much product, basically all of that contour has basically come right down here to my eyebrow, and kind of cut off here in terms of highlight on my cheek. My forehead, I mean, I know we want to minimize forehead, but it's just a lot, okay? So to me, it's a no. So what we're going to do alternatively, and I'll show you how I would contour now on this side, is basically just here. Do you see? I will only literally just draw that line and then just dot around the perimeter, and I won't even contour my nose. So I'm going to use the same brush, and we start down here. To blend out that contour along my chin and jawline. And then let me also do my forehead. When I do my forehead, I like to take the product out, not in. So I won't brush it this way, I will brush it in to my hairline. And you don't want to be that, and that's why you don't want too much product around here, because if you have too much, then it's going to actually sit in your hair and you're going to see it. Whereas if you just have a little bit of product, then it's easy to blend out, right? And here for the sculpt, I don't want to bring it all the way in to my face. I literally just want to keep it to the top of the cheekbone, because that's what I want to catch your eye. That little bit of right there is enough. I don't need to bring it all the way in. Okay, typically for me now, I would go in with bronzer. And the tip for bronzer is to basically, again, a little goes a long way. I'm going to pick up way too much on this brush and just show you what happens when you have too much product on your brush. So for me, I think it just ends up looking a little bit muddy and a little bit extreme, particularly because you've gone in, particularly if you've gone in with as much contour as I did. I'll put a similar-ish amount on this side. First of all, I'm going to tap off the excess. And also, because I've got less contour, it's just going to look a little bit more natural. It's not going to be as harsh. It's going to look more like, those are just her natural tones. Like, that's just the view. Alright, next up is blush, and for blush I'm using this blush. It's the e.l.f. mineralized blush, I think, in the shade Always Spicy. It's a really nice kind of warm terracotta shade, which I love. And I'm going to pick up some product on this and go right in to my cheek and stamp that on. Now, blush, I absolutely love blush. It's just one of those products that I've always loved. Always liked what it looked like, especially if you get the right shade for your skin tone. And there are definitely days still now where I just overdo it with the blush and still look a bit crazy, but that's just because I love the product. But you can see on this side, it's looking a little bit clownish. It's more than flushed. It's a bit too much. What I'm going to do is use the same blush, but I'm going to go in with a stippling brush. Now, a stippling brush is great because it gives a beautiful diffused look to any kind of products that you apply. And that means that everything just looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so one of the biggest trends that has been around for a couple of years is highlight, and extremely bright highlight. I feel like we've actually passed the phase of extreme highlight, but I do still see a lot of people kind of going for that super, super glow on their cheekbones. So I'm going to do that on this side just to show you what it looks like. This is not something that I really do anymore unless I'm going for like a night out. Then there was that whole nose highlight thing, which I definitely did, and sometimes I think it still looks cute, but when it's too much, it's really not the one. There was even a chin highlight, and I don't know why you would want to highlight your chin anymore. At least for me, I've got a long face, I wouldn't do that. Okay, so that is that side. Super glowy, super dramatic. Catch it, catch it. Now, it looks good on camera, probably. I'll see once I edit it, in terms of catching the light, but in person, it looks a bit much. So I'm going to show you how I would highlight this side of my face. Number one, what I would do is not go in for a super bright highlight. Use something that's a little bit more muted, or actually maybe mix your highlighter, like dip the brush into like a loose powder after you've done that. That's kind of like your setting powder. That would also help to bring it down a bit. So number one, less is more if you're going to do it. Gosh, can you even see that? You probably can't see anything, but I promise you I'm highlighting. But for me, keep it extremely subtle. And yeah, that's that. That's what I would do. If I was going to do it today, that's what I would do. Wouldn't go more than that. Okay, so that's the gist of it, but I'm going to finish off the face pretty much fully. So I'm going to go and put on some mascara on the bottom lash, set my face, put on a lip, and then I'll come back and we can talk. So I'm back. Let's break it down. So let me just show you the two sides of the face. So this side is the side with the mistakes or don'ts, and this is the side with the do's. Now, makeup is all preference, so you might prefer, you know, a more dramatic look that kind of leans towards this, or you might prefer a more natural look. There's no real right or wrong answer, but I feel as though there are things that are on this side that just definitely make it look less flawless, less put together, even if you want to have drama on the face, okay? So number one, the brows. There's nowhere where you want this dark brow. I guarantee you it looks blocky, and I didn't even make it as blocky as I could. I didn't fill in that front part to a super block, but it just looks a lot. This side is much more natural, looks like your brows look better, like it looks like you haven't even touched your brows. If people knew what you looked like in the morning, then they would be surprised that this is you know, a really drawn on brow, because I didn't have much product on. I didn't have much to work with in terms of hairs, but it still looks really nice and natural. On the concealer vibe, I still think that concealing on top of the brow is a no for me. It's just something that I don't do anymore. I like the more feathery, soft top look. It looks more natural for me. If you are going to do the top concealer, then please just use a concealer that is closer to your skin tone. Here, it's screaming bright for me, and it's emphasizing even more the fact that I've gone in with a black liner to do the eyebrow hair. Concealer all over the face, what do you guys think? For me, this side again totally wins, much more natural, less dramatic. I do have to admit that if I'm going out for an event and it's like an evening event, then I will go in with a brighter concealer. It will never be this bright, but I will probably use that shade to add to this shade just right here in the inner corner to lift that just a tiny little bit more. But if I am going to do that, then I always set with a deeper powder. I don't go in with the same kind of bright powder that I did on this side, and I definitely don't bake. I just find it's a lot harder to be able to try and blend and to try and there's so much more work involved when you have to work with that kind of contrast. Same for the contour. The shade is fine, but I think less is more in terms of you being able to control where the product is and how your face looks. Bronzer and blush, just going in with a little bit too much can look a little bit cakey, particularly in photos. Can look a little bit orangish, especially if the shade is a little bit off. Same thing for the concealer and the setting powder. If I was to do some flash photography right now, this side is going to look like ghost face, and this side is going to look like, oh, she looked cute. And if you're going out for an event, then you don't want that flashback, because those are the photos that are going to get circulated around. We've all seen those photos, we've all had them, we don't want them. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.